Everybody, Texas Stroker here, Lance's Performance Shop, Lone Star Mopars.com. Sunday night, trying to get some videos taken care of. We needed to film and record for a long time, get stuff put away. We're going to start. This is a standalone item. That's right, we rarely do that, but it's one of those things. If this was jumbled up in like a generic tool haul or train wreck tool haul, probably wouldn't get the attention it deserves. This might be a welcome addition for many of you, and where I picked this up I'll have it linked down below. I don't make anything off the link, it's just there for your convenience. You might be able to find this elsewhere, but it is picked up from Summit Racing. It is part number 5500 from NotcHead, and that's what we've got. So NotcHead, some of you that may sound familiar if you've bought, I kind of think what they're probably best known for, it's sort of like if you took almost like a screwdriver crossed with a chuck, and you can just fasten it around a fastener, and essentially then you hold that, handle way out here away from a bench grinder wire wheel type of a deal, and don't run the risk of stabbing yourself or taking bristles to the skin, having your glove pulled in, all that jazz. And I think they do some other things, but it was, I don't know, sometime late this summer, fall. There's actually like a pretty big sale on them, and I had some Summit bucks, and you would be typically looking at 45-ish or so for this kit. We paid a little less than that plus a discount, so it worked out well. And you think, well, what is it, genius? Well, this is an AN wrench insert kit. And you're thinking like, what in the world? There's a lot going on here. What is it? Well, hopefully if we isolate this, you can kind of get a feel for it. And this is basically going to be something that slip fits over your standard open-end wrench and converts it to sort of a soft finish that won't mar your anodized fittings. So back here, I'll just have to pull this up. It's small print. It says, leave your tape in the toolbox. Again, that's something people do a lot of times, is just tape up an open-end wrench. Use your standard wrenches for AN applications with our no mar inserts. The inserts will take the impact, leaving your fittings pristine. Wrench inserts are friction fit to your standard wrenches. This particular kit, again, part number 5500, includes AN 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then they claim 3/4 inch. So I will tear this open real quick if we can. Get the bag able to dump the contents out. Did not realize it was going to be a sealed bag, actually. So, if we get this poured out, it'll kind of start to make more sense. And that's what you get. It's 6 pieces, stored in a bag if you want to, put it elsewhere, whatever works best for you. And this is it. And you're thinking like, okay, this is strange. Well, keep in mind, AN wrenches are pretty expensive, and the problem you run into, right, so let's just showcase this one first. This is for a dash 10 fitting. We flip it over, you can kind of see again, picture your wrench going in here, then this becomes protected I should say. Looks like this is going to fit 13/16 or 1 3/16. It's kind of an odd space there, we'll have to see. Pretty significant size here. But basically right here where the work is being done, turning my AN fitting finger here, that won't mar it up. That's essentially the same as tape, the same as you're running an AN wrench. And the most recent pickup we had, I do a lot of this stuff off camera using these and whatnot. This was the ICT billet set. These have been pretty dadgum good to me. Again, we got a great deal on those. Kind of a cool story on that company once you get past like LS Swap the World, if you will. But prior to that, I was using kind of like cheaply. I have the old adjustable here, which as you can see has been torn up pretty bad. And even this one, dedicated dash 6, if I can get a glove hand there, you can see it's kind of pulling like the color off, right? And you can see that wear and tear on your fittings. So this is something that I don't know that I would go standalone this route. But if you have an adjustable, or if you have a nice set, or if you only use a handful of sizes, then this becomes a complement to it. I think you can buy this standalone. Don't hold me to that. I think the set was a much better option. But if we come in over here, I get this little blue wrench out of the way. This is my, if you ever wonder what I do with all those L-boxes we've like slowly brought in over the years, well, this is a double stack. The bottom's got a little bit more action in it, but Right here I've got like, this is a test setup, right? So essentially this is just a test kit, and again, your garden hose fitting here. You run it through the assembly that you've created. You've got your plugs over on this end, you've got your pressure ports. I've got a pressure gauge over there as well. Kind of a neat little setup really when you get down to it, but that's all that's in there. And this one is a good example because I can come in, and if we take our ICT billet wrench right here, you can see very nice fit. I can then turn, we can tighten, we can do whatever we want to, and in theory, since this is a soft wrench, we shouldn't tear that up, right? However, as you may have guessed, that doesn't always happen. And what becomes of it if this was -8 and this is -8 and you need to separate them and you only have one -8 wrench? Well, then you better have either a secondary set, multiple AN wrenches, or an adjustable. In my case, the adjustable, and this is like the second one that I've kind of like marred up with this thing, comes in and you've got your other fending there. It works pretty well, but again, just trying to find something that's not going to chew things up, we have this. So what I will do is grab some random wrenches. We'll put this thing together. We'll see how they fit, how they're tight. If we'll maybe grab a couple of the same wrench, make sure they all fit good across the board. It's essentially just friction fit, so there could be some issues. I guess it depends sort of like how aggressive your jaws are, if they're worn, if it's like a stew. You know, there's lots of different variances in wrenches. So it should be pretty close, but I'll get some variety here so we can kind of check it out, kind of cover a gauntlet of wrenches you may or may not have. And we'll see how they stack up versus just some standalone wrenches. So give me a second to gather some stuff and we will be back. All right, so this is where something changes from where you have it on the bench and you throw down the concept and the idea and it seems really good. And then you actually do like a practical thing here and test fit and find some shortcomings potentially. So we're going to get started here, and the way this is set up, the -3, which is what we have installed in this SKX frame, is going to fit a 9/16 wrench. This was insanely tight. This also fills it up quite nicely, which is going to be a significant deviation of what's to come. But again, you're typically going to deal with this stuff, you know, like nitrous brake lines, small, obviously, things like that. But this gives you a great feel. If this is all you test, you're like, yeah, this is awesome. You know, way to go, X-frame. Going to have multiple purposes with that. Now, moving on, if I can figure out which one is going to be the -4, which it's going to be an 11/16. Not exactly the most common wrench, but most any complete set is going to have that. So right here we've got a open end of a Stavilla 11/16. Pretty good fitment here, right? You know, like covering the friction fit. But check this out. If I set that off, you have a whole lot more, almost like another third to half of a wrench that could go in there. So depending on how well these things hold up over time, and again, if you have like a dedicated wrench, maybe you've got like some open end, which I wanted to highlight that. Think of wrenches that you may not use often, like you're always going to use, say, your ratcheting wrench, or you're always going to use your standard combination. Maybe you have these open ends and you rarely use them. It's just if you need a backup or a backing wrench, or you treat these as an ultra thin or something. It might be wise to leave that planted, because I don't know how many cycles of this are going to happen before that like rubs and wears thin. Obviously the wrench going to be a harder material than your Nomar insert here. I would surmise that over time, especially with loads placed on these and then coming in and out, it could wear to a point where it just doesn't fit the 11/16, right? And you say, well, geez, you know, just put a 5/8 on it. Well, hang with me for a second. We're going to throw that down. And now what we're looking for is going to be a -6. And what we have with a -6 is 13/16. This is a Capri. This is a ratcheting wrench, right? So it's super nice, and it gives you kind of a special end here. Now, once more, if I press that flush, we've got a pretty good bit of, you know, extra real estate there, you know. This is something that could have been filled in like this. I totally understand having all this real estate here for your AN fitting. That's desirable. You wouldn't necessarily need to have all of this real estate. Now, it is nice. I'm not sure what wrench has that fat of a jaw. You're typically going to be working with something fairly standardized. That's where you could run into some issues. Now, these Capris are one of the mini wrenches. A lot of people are only going to have wrenches like this now with teeth on them. I feel like that might help it fit a little bit better. But again, your Dash 6 will be a 13/16. And if you pay attention here, like, there's significant gaps under these two as they're pushed up against the work mat. Up next, we have our 7/8 wrench, and it is holding a 3/4 non-mar insert. So that kind of gives you an idea of the fractional deviations there. And right, again, I mean, just look at that. We could plug in another wrench if we wanted to. Case in point, we'll just grab the flip side of this, which is 13/16, slightly larger than the 7/8. And in terms of the fitment, obviously it's not quite big enough to hug that. But if I had another Stavilla, another open end, to dang near any wrench I have, you could fit 2 wrenches there. And that's kind of highlighting the problem of sort of like a universal fitment. It's great. You wouldn't want to have to come in, and if this was styled for snap-on or some thick beefcake or a cheap Pittsburgh wrench or something, you might want it to work with what you already have, so you don't have to expend the money. But in terms of great fit, like I said, this is more than double the wrench that we could fit in there. So it's going to vary with what you have, but it's definitely worth noting here. So what we will do now is get into where things are really kind of unfortunately getting bad, and that'll be the big sizes. So let me see where I've set them. They're over here. Up next, we've got, of course, that was your 7/8 wrench. Fits a Dash 6. This is our Dash 8 insert, and it's going to need a 1/16. Now, maybe I'm cheap. You got to realize a lot of standard wrench sets are going to stop at 3/4. Even more of them are going to stop at 7/8. That's why you always hear me complain. I use 15/16 all the time with 5/8 hardware. That's critical to me. The next step up, at least professionally at work, I use a lot of 3/4 hardware. So what do I need for that? An 1/8. Okay. 1/8, 1/4, fairly common. 1 inch, you have like some oddball stuff that you can kind of plug and play. KN filter people will be proud of me for citing that. But an 1/16, it's debatable that that's even included in like a fairly comprehensive set, or even a set that's like stops at 7/8 or stops at 1 inch, and then you have to expand from there, right? For example, these Capris, that is a ratcheting wrench set in foam. It's a complete set, runs all the way to 1 inch. There's nothing bigger. SKX frames, what was my knock on those back in the day? That they stopped at 3/4 and didn't offer larger standalone sizes, right? So a Stavilla, you could piecemeal something together with like a professional line of wrenches. You can piecemeal something together. But if you don't already have an 1/16 wrench, it's probably because you haven't ever found a need for one. Okay. Now, there could be a metric crossover I'm not thinking of or something. Maybe it would fit better, but for me, here at the house, to have an 1/16 wrench, I've kind of gotten accustomed to Pliers wrenches, sort of filling the unknowns beyond, what I have anyway. We've got to go to the big old Vihas, right? Remember when I got these for a song and a dance? A lot of you cashed in as well, and it's like, hey, you never know when you're going to need these things, and if you need them, you got them, and the box end is ratcheting, it's sort of the telltale sign. I will be totally honest with you, I have never needed the 1/16 until right now. And the problem is, when I put this in there, this is the first one that fits incredibly loose, okay? Like, really, really loose. And even pushing it this way, this wrench head on the Viha is very thick. It fills it out more so than pretty much anything. That X-frame is kind of a given, since it's also the smallest no-mar insert that we have. But, like, this fits about average, there. But then the problem is that, okay? I can take this Stavilla, that doesn't happen. We can take the Capri, that doesn't happen. We can take the open-end Stavilla, doesn't happen. We can take the SK, definitely doesn't happen. this is a pretty fat jaw, but dimensionally, one of these is going to be off a smidge, right? Either this is over or this is under, or possibly a combination of both. But the bottom line, that is not desirable, right? So I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, hey, that's 1 1/16. 1/16 of an inch, that's nothing. You know, like an eighth is 0.125, right? So a 1/16 is half of that. Surely you could come in and just with that menial of a decimal point difference, just go down to a 1 inch wrench. Well, I'm a step ahead of you, because I thought, well, you know what, that is pretty loose. I bet we can just slam a 1 inch on it. No, you see how that's not going to fit, but that doesn't fit either. That's where we're at. So that is very unfortunate. Now it does, don't get me wrong, it'll actually fit in here. It just doesn't fit well at all. That is not friction fit. That is slop loose fit. That, quite frankly, is unacceptable. So moving on, we've still got one more size to go. And if you're thinking like, yeah, it went to -10, didn't it? It absolutely did. Again, -10, you're thinking like, okay, well, hey, they probably made that, what, 1.1/8, 1.25 inches, you know, and no big deal, you got those. No. As you can see, this side is -10, and then over here, this is the one that I told you. I was like, is it 13/16 or oddly spaced if it is? 1 3/16. Again, jumbo wrench set, an old school, like industrial brand wrench sets. Your dad, grandpa, or uncle went overboard with their Snap-on purchases. Maybe they did like heavy equipment stuff, so you do have that, but for the average person, whether they're like a weekend warrior, just, you know, general home repair, handyman, mowers, home repair, automotive, if you're not doing something with heavy equipment or diesels or big rigs, the average guy probably isn't going to have many wrenches beyond 1 inch, right? And right here, again, going to the VHA set, which is coming in clutch for us with these large, not often used sizes, this also just does not fit well. I do not have, like, you're thinking like, oh, well, you know, idiot, go get your fancy German stuff or some Japanese wrenches, or go get the right grips. They'll probably fill it up. You know, it's probably a tolerance issue. I don't have 1 1/16 and 1 3/16. Why, you ask? I don't ever use them. In all my life, I cannot think of a single time that I've had to use either. I'm sure I might be overlooking something. Maybe there was crud built up and I was able to do it. I know we have some at work, but they just kind of hang there, and they hang there because they're not used, right? So 1 1/8, 1 1/4. Past that, probably 1.5 inches is going to be the common size. These are odd ducklings is what I'm getting at. And that's going to create a problem. For me, I actually am fortunate enough here at the house to have this absurdly large VHA ratcheting wrench set, and there's not good fitment on these inserts. So, -10, I'll be totally honest, I can't think of a time I've run. I might have had one fuel cell that had a -10 on it, but only times I'm really working on -10 has been when I have other people's stuff in here and it's like super fast, you know, like not street car, like race car, stupid fast stuff. That you got to think like 10/16, yeah, that's a lot of line right there. Okay, you're moving a lot of whatever is going through there. And, to put it in perspective, 8/16, what is -8? That's half. That's a big fuel line, right? So -10, even larger. It's not a good combination. So you're thinking like, well, hey, you know, like my sets stop at 7/8, and I'm totally fine. I just use pliers wrenches. Well, let's find out if we can do it. So right here, I've got the good old NWS here. Thought we'd give it some airtime. And this went from what I thought would be a quick and easy video to kind of like takes more time, because it's not quite as simple as I thought it would be. And of course, I've been too large and I've been too small. So right here, this is kind of the adjustment range. Now, you're thinking like, hey, that's a great fit. Well, it is until I release. And so this is kind of almost on par with how the VHA is fitting, but the difference between the VHA and this pliers wrench, I can take up the slack. Now, what's going to suck here, look how wide these handles are open right now. And if I'm going to bear down to try and tighten something, I'm going to squeeze it. and I'm applying very minimal pressure here. If I were to bear down on this to tighten something, there's a good chance I accidentally apply too much pressure, and I think I could easily overpower this thing. So the pliers wrench is definitely an option. Again, the NWS is not near as precise as some of the others, Knipex, Gedore, Stavilla. I think even the Icon is going to have more positions. That's usually something that slows you down a little bit. That's one of the nice things about the NWS. But in this case, you would almost want to have the more precise position so you could possibly land in a sweet spot and utilize this thing. Next thing I thought was, hey, you know, the pliers wrench is going to have that problem, so let's come in and we have Old Faithful here, something I used all the time before I discovered pliers wrenches, right? And using this, I think, is going to be what most people will resort to. If you're curious, this one was from Heiko. Pretty sure it was a tool of the day, sweet steel type of thing. It's my old adjustables, new fancy adjustables, you know, Irega, American, Industrial, Snap, whatever. If you've got an adjustable wrench, you can make this work. So this is sort of your saving grace. Again, right here, we have all the benefit of me squeezing the pliers wrench and getting this nice and tight. Oh, that scared the snot out of me. I guess it's a sprinkler hitting the side of the building. But where that pliers wrench, you'd have to control your hand and make sure you don't like crack this fitting or something. With this, I don't have that problem, right? I'm upside down, shaking. Could I pull it out if I wanted to? Yeah, but I basically got this dialed in perfectly. Again, whether or not this is oversized and the wrench is under, or a combination of the two, with the old adjustable, we can take up the difference. Now, the sad thing is, if you have this out, you almost just assume buy another one of these, right? So it's kind of a catch-22 there. These two big sizes, I think they sort of missed the mark on. And again, to give NotcHead full credit, I would go test fit, you know, a different, you know, 1 1/16 or 1 3/16. But as you've seen me do these tool hauls and I bring stuff in, I don't ever expand my sets out to these sizes. I do actually. I go to 1 1/8 here and 1 1/4 sometimes, especially at work, but I don't have a need to purchase these standalone because I don't use them. And now at this point in time, if you're like me and you would be having to go out and purchase, say, Stavilla, Gedore, I mean, geez, we could probably get Heiko pretty reasonably, or I could go with a right wrench, you know, type of thing, a big proto. Is it going to fit the insert? Like, I couldn't imagine the VHAs being off that much. Well, I haven't used these two. I have used the more normal sizes, and I've used the small sizes a ton, and I haven't had like, oh, hey, this, I've got my 1/2 inch wrench here, and clearly this 5/16 fastener is a problem. I've never been in that position. When I've used those VHAs, I've used metric a lot and the SAE, I've never had issues with the open end or the ratcheting box end not fitting a fastener. Given that, I'm inclined to say that these two sizes would also likely be on par and accurate. So yeah, I think you're going to need, with this set, an adjustable wrench. So like I said, you know, this can create problems because if you're bearing down on it and you loosen or something, you've created slop. Again, I'm having to tighten this to get it to a point where it'll stay, and then am I going to overwear this thing? I don't know. It's just kind of disappointing, to be straight up honest with you. So what I want to do now, though, since 9/16 is really 9/16 and 7/8 are going to be the more common sizes. Good Lord, I want to go ahead and pull this out. I'm going to show you how tight this one was. Like that was some fitment there. You can see the teeth on the X-frame if you haven't seen them in a while. So we're going to come in right here. I've got the big old Icon. This is kind of their long pattern ratcheting wrench. It's also a very tight fit. Like this, I thought maybe the SK jaws are a little fatter, the teeth. This one from Icon is smooth. If you think, no, you bought those stupid, you know, toothed ones. That was my metric set. These are smooth jaws here. And again, this is just a nice, this is a beautiful fit, really. So that's a win. Coming in, since we know that fits, we know this should fit. This is the same thing in stubby. Again, I do this, why? Not so we can just have tons of wrenches out here, but let's say that you don't want to sacrifice your 9/16 wrench for this and you'd rather have something dedicated for these inserts. Maybe you rarely use your stubby. Boom. Same concept with the Stavilla. You're always using your combination wrench. You hardly ever use your open end, double open end. Dedicate it, right? Same things. Dedicate your stubby. Maybe you always use your ratcheting stubbies and that made your, you know, standard fixed stubbies obsolete. Dedicate it to this. Just again, trying to give you some options here. Coming in next, a Gedore. I want to again kind of just test fit things here. That's a pretty tight fit as well. Not quite as tight as the Icon or SK, interestingly, but it does fit. I would be more than fine with that. This was something that I thought would kind of be neat. As I'm sitting there gathering wrenches, what do I have hanging around on a mag rack? It's these little Tecton angle wrenches. These are unique because both ends are offset 30 and 60. But think about it. If you're building something on the bench, you know, there in the vise and initial line, you've got full access to it. You can swing it around, do whatever you need to with your soft jaw setup. However, put yourself at the track, right? Maybe you're out there at the Texas Mile trying to get 200 Certicard. Maybe you're just sitting out on a testing tune. Maybe it's a grudge race night. Maybe you're going around trying to make some money. Let's say that your car sputters, right, in qualifying, and you're sitting there and you're like, crud, you know, ran a bad number, got to get this up there. We got, you know, probably 40 minutes before we can make another pass, and I need to get a good number so I can have my dial-in set right. So you're diagnosing it, and you find out that your fuel filter must be plugged, right? Because you've got the pump going, you disconnected the carb, and it's not the amount of fuel that should be in that volume. Your PSI, you know, isn't where it should be. That's what tipped you off. You start looking for the issue. It's the filter. No problem, you've got the filter, but when you come in underneath the car, you know, bare shirt, you know, on the rough parking lot surface, that's vastly different than sitting here on the bench, right? So that's where something like this and these inserts would be super nice. If you've got this with you in your trailer or in the truck toolbox or what you take to the track, can you get it? You know, it kind of depends where the filter's located, right? Maybe this will go here, but if you've got to hold this fitting, all of a sudden you've got a problem. Take an angle wrench like this, and you might get yourself in some different positions where you can actually get leverage, break that free, go to the other side, spin it out, dump the element, you know, blow it out or knock it around and throw it back together, put a new filter element in, new filter, again, depends on what you're running. And, could be pretty handy. This is a very loose fit, like super loose. So this does seem to vary manufacturer to manufacturer. Again, let's just be like right here, there's a lot of overlap there. So I want to make sure if you were just running a standard 8 or 10 inch, which that's what most people are going to have, adjustable, this insert here is too thin to go over the backside. So I would literally have to kind of collapse it down out here. And I think that fitment is less than ideal. Again, it's the backside here doesn't clear the rails of the adjustable wrench right. So you would have to be out here. Again, really good fitment. But if you were buying these, you probably weren't planning on having to use an adjustable wrench. So these are a great concept. I can see, again, from the manufacturer standpoint of these, you want this to fit as many wrenches as possible. If you build them to spec for a right grip 2.0, not everybody's going to have a right grip 2.0. You could have some issues, right? So you have to then make them universal. And when you make them universal, you wind up with things like this, where there is literally space for another wrench, or something like this, where, oh, well, there it went right there. You take the size of wrench that you prescribe, 1 1/16 inch, and it's just not happening. So I've had these, like I said, sitting there for quite a while. I'm sort of buzzkilled about it. The good news, your small sizes, 3, 4, and 6 are going to be pretty good. This 7/8 one that you think, oh yeah, well, you got your Dash 8 too, and I remember you said you use 6 and 8 the most, and I totally do, but this is a 3/4 deal. as you can hopefully see there. And that's not the wrench size, that's actually what size this non-Mar fitting is, and then it's 7/8 for that size. So yeah, if you need, like, maybe you just do nitrous stuff and you need as many, like, you know, -3, -4 or brake lines or chassis guys, something, small sizes might be a win. The -6 is good. You get past that and it's, I'm gonna just call it what it is, it's gonna be hit and miss, and so far it's mainly missing. Like I said, if you're buying that, it is, the beauty of it is you can use it with your existing wrenches. Not sure that's going to apply in two ways. Number one, fitment, and number two, there's going to be a whole lot of people that do not own an 1 1/16 and an 1 3/16. So I love that they kept it SAE. That's cool. But yeah, that's kind of a buzz killer right there. I could run, and realistically, I don't have many metric wrenches that are going to be too large, right? I typically am stopping my sets around what I do with SAE. So maybe you have a metric crossover in some big expansive set, but yeah, that's this is kind of disappointing. I'm not gonna lie. But if I come in here just to kind of highlight how these would work, oh geez, if I could find what I need, must have not had that set up well. Right here, I mean, you get the idea of what it could do. I grabbed this for contrast for you, but you got your -4. It is holding it fairly well. I was thinking it might even round out, but do you want this centered? Do you want it offset to the back, offset to the front? Is it going to shimmy around on you? How many times can this insert come out and go back in? Oh man. I honestly think the better option is to, now if you like this, if you're interested in it, if you know you could use the small sizes, this is in play. I think for most people your better option is to buy a pliers wrench and get soft jaws. If you probably already have the pliers wrench and you can just add the soft jaws. That's what I do with tons of this stuff, and that way you're sort of, and again, you've actually seen me specifically tell you, hey, this is set up for perma soft jaws. Soft jaws might wear out, and they do, but this is the soft jaw pliers wrench. That's what its sole purpose is here, and it's for stuff like this. So this is a really good idea, and when executed, I can definitely see potential there, but the 8 is going to be a problem, and then past that is also an issue. So I don't know. Like I said, maybe with different wrenches this would be great. I'm not sure what they set it up for. Totally understand you're not going to be able to account for the variances between manufacturers and standards. It should be close enough to be functional, and that doesn't seem to have panned out here at all. So, ooh, I'm just going to have to call it what I see it, and tell you, if you like it and you're willing to deal with, you know, possible disappointment, or you're fine running the adjustable, these would be super cool. I think they could sell them for less, particularly given the issues we found here. But again, I want to say you can get these standalone as well. If you do like me, you do 6 and 8, or you mainly do like chassis brake stuff, you know, type of a thing, maybe just get those inserts, call it good. Then if you really love them, slowly expand out. But again, 1 1/16, 1 3/16, that's going to kill it for a lot of people, because if you don't own a wrench that size and you go out and buy a standalone, that's a lot of money. Okay, like, I don't care where you're getting the wrench. It can be Harbor Freight, you know, farm and ranch store, pawn shop. Like, you're going to spend some money for a wrench that size, right? So it's kind of a bit of a buzzkill on that one. So I wasn't anticipating that when we started the video. I thought it would go quick, and then I kept running into issue after issue there. So good concept, could use a little bit of improvement, I think. Again, I do recognize the difficulties they would face making and marketing something like this, given variances between all the possible wrenches out there. Where I have this stuff, next guy might have Snap-on and Mac, and the Snap-ons may fit great and the Macs might not. Your old proto stuff might fit beautifully, and then your new stuff doesn't. It's a crapshoot, and that is unfortunate. But small sizes seem okay. Big 3 sizes, not okay. Adjustable seems to be a good solution for the larger sizes anyway, that'll hug the back cradle. And if you're going to use a pliers wrench, you just as well go with a Gedore or a Knipex that offers you the ability to run a soft jaw. So, with that said, let me know what you think of this setup. If you like it, if you hate it, if you can, see what they were doing and think it's justifiable for what you would need. If you hate it and you're like, man, you're just better off spending that $40 towards something like this again. Whatever you think, feel free to leave your thoughts down below. Again, you could absolutely pick up multiples of these and save money. That might be the best recommendation. Most people, you're either going to do that enough to justify that, or you're going to have your AN wrenches and you're going to need like the backup, the soft jaw pliers wrench, etc. So, but with that said, LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. Once again, leave your thoughts. If you like what you see, I encourage you to subscribe. If you subscribe and ring the bell while wielding your 1 3/16 wrench that actually fits that -10 insert, so you can tighten up a leak before you go make the winning pass and eliminations at the track, YouTube just might notify you. We got new videos every Wednesday and Saturday, 9 a.m. Texas time. With that said, thanks again for watching, and I hope I catch you back here for more action from the shop.